lunch. Make sure I don't go over on hours.
Okay.
Because they're not,
I understand.
they're not getting paid full time.
I understand. Okay, the question got asked a couple minutes ago by Colin and Brady. They said, why is that gray? Right? The reason that that's gray is this line right here has to change. Where it says call weather query, now that weather is at the top, that should be weather. And when you do that, notice that now it's no longer grayed out. And we had it before as weather query because that was at the top of where we were. But now we put weather up above that. So that has to change from weather query to query. All right. Now we're going to keep going. I still, during the break, I tried to fix this and I haven't been able to. It may reconcile itself as we get going. It may not. Yes.
So for
Down here?
the function get forecast.
Yeah, we're going to change this. We are going to be changing that. All right. But I'm still not sure why that query, because when I did mine, it didn't do that. All right. So, like I said, we're going to continue on, and for lack of better, of something better, if we still can't figure out, if there's that error and I can't figure out what it is, I'll see if I can contact the author and see if, and send him my code and ask him if he knows what the problem is. All right. Because literally that should work. It's not working, but it should work. All right. Now, right now, let's see, where are we? We're here. And this. If you remember, if you look up on the screen here, this is what we had been using for this, right? Okay, I put in a bunch of names just so we had some garbage data in there. In fact, I think I even said it was garbage data. All right, but the time has come for us to not have that be garbage data in there anymore. So we're going to make some changes, because what we want to have that list view hold is our 10 days worth of temperatures. Okay, so we're going to come down here. And again, family members is a dumb name, so I'm just going to literally just get rid of this whole variable right here. So that's gone. All right. And what these are in here is they're a list. They're going to be a list of forecasts. All right. So I'm going to put in here var forecast strings equals. Equals, and if you look up on the screen, please, every time we put in a new city, that's going to change. Would you agree with that? Or if I run it today, it's going to show me 10 days worth of forecast beginning today. If I run it tomorrow, it's going to show me 10 days of forecast beginning tomorrow. So it's a var instead of a val because it'll be ever changing. Not only will a variable be ever changing, the list of stuff that we put in there, those strings, they will be ever changing. All right? Lists, by their very nature, cannot be changed once they're created. Did you hear what I said? Unless you do this. You say mutable list of. All right, you do something like that. I think we need parens at the end here. There we go. Now, what I just put up here is this line that you see in blue. It may or may not make sense, so let's try to break the line down. All right, it's a var because it is variable. It's called forecast strings. That's just a name I came up with. Why? Because it's going to be a mutable list of strings. And since it's holding forecast strings seem to be a pretty good name. All right. It's mutable, meaning we want to allow it to change. Now, if you look up on the screen, please, All right. In particular, if you look up what's in blue up on the screen. Earlier, what we did was we were creating stuff and we were giving it values. You hear what I said? We were pre-populating the array with family members, etc. Would you agree? No trick question. Would you agree when you look right here, we're not pre-populating forecast strings? Would you agree with that? We're not putting anything in there. When you do it like this, you have to put in these angle brackets because it has to know what kind of data are you planning on putting in there. We didn't have to do that before because we already pre-populated it with strings. We are going to put strings in here, but the system does not know that what we're going to put in there are strings. Yes?
On this file, fix the dot query.
Yes.
We need to change everything where we have the list that says weather query to weather.
Okay. All right, and we'll do that in just a minute. Okay. I want to just run through this. It's just a few lines of code. Now you'll see that as soon as we change that, if you look up on the screen here, notice how that changed. It's red now. And that should make sense to you because we got rid of family members. It's not there anymore, so the system doesn't understand what it is we are trying to do. We are going to change that in just a minute. All right? But that said, we only want to fill up that list. Listen to what I'm saying here. We only want to fill up that list view if we've got something to put in there. In other words, we don't want to fill that with 10 nulls. Does that make sense? We don't want it to say null, 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 null. That would be dumb. All right? So we're going to keep this line in here that says to create the array adapter. We're going to keep that line in there. All right? But we're going to put some stuff up in here before this. All right? So we're going to put some code in here right now. And it's going to say if one sec. Okay, I guess we're going to have to fix what Evan just said to fix. All right. We have to go back and we have to fix. This isn't going to work until with what we put in here before, that was the red underline, until we get that fixed, I don't think we're going to be able to go on. So we have to fix this. All right. Now, what he said, if I read you right, was everywhere in here that it says weather query. See that? Everybody see that? It'll have to change to just weather because we added another layer up on top of it. Am I right? Okay. So I'm going to come in here and all these dot weather queries, etc. I'm just going to change that to dot weather. All right. I'm going to come in here and make that dot weather. Hasn't changed it yet, but hopefully it will. That one's a dot weather. Are there other ones here that I'm missing?
There's the one on the on failure, but
Right here.
it works. You know, change to
Because that one isn't. I'm still getting the same error. Dot weather, dot weather, dot weather. Boy, I'm not happy. Well, we're going to go on as though these errors are not here. Okay? Will they resolve themselves? I guess we're going to see in just a couple minutes. All right? So we're going to have that forecast string, which is going to be our mutable list of strings. Okay? All right. Now, the way that we get to each individual forecast, this is probably also going to give an error, just so you know. And Evan, you can check on yours and see if it gives an error for you. But we want to say var forecasts equal, now I've got that here, okay, var forecasts equal response dot body, okay, and it's already puking, but that's okay, dot query. Now notice it recognizes query, but it doesn't recognize response. All right. All right. Dot results dot channel. And there's 2 N's in channel, not 3. Dot item dot forecast. Okay, now I'm looking at that, and again, it doesn't like this. It's giving me the same kind of error that we had down here. Something's unresolved. I'm looking at my code here, and my code worked when I did this. I'm not sure what the problem is, so I'm going to have to go back. But again, we're just going to go on. I'd rather get this done, try to fix the errors, come back and say, hey, these were the errors, then spend another day on this. All right? So, will this matter if I put that one up first? I'm going to try that. No, doesn't matter. All right. So, again, I'm just going to labor on here, and I'm going to say, after the line we just put in, if forecasts not equal null. Okay, so if it was not null, I'm going to put in a for loop. Start. I'm hoping this is going to wrap in just a second, but we'll find out. Of course it didn't. So let me put this over 2 lines. ideally, what that is going to put on our screen is the date, followed by the high temperature, followed by the low temperature, followed by the text, which will say something like partly cloudy or whatever. All right? Okay. Let's see. We've got our adapter. Got this. It should be right. So I've got two errors in here that I'm going to have to try to reconcile. This one and the one down here.
For the lower line, for all those where it says it's an angle bracket, if you remove the list within the angle bracket,
This?
that is yeah.
So it just, so what?
So it's
Just the word list? Or
so it's just call and then weather dot help or weather help dot weather.
does that have to be in angle brackets?
Yes.
So you're saying it should look like that?
Yeah. All of them should look like that.
In where? The on failure?
Yeah.
This is going to change later. And I still have to figure out what that one is. Got it down to one error. That's good. All right. So if you take a look, this has not changed. This we added. Var forecast strings equals mutable list of string. This we added, and we're still in here, in right there. I'm still getting an error message. Okay, we'll try to fix that, or maybe somebody can figure out what the problem is. All right. This basically is saying, as long as we have stuff to fill up that list view, fill up the list view. But if we don't have anything to fill up the list view, we have nothing to do. That's, for lack of better words, that's what that code is saying. All right? This is not new. Creating the adapter is not new. This is not new. This is not new. Now, if you look up on the screen here, again, I apologize for all these problems. But when you look up here, Evan said that previously we had here angle bracket list, and then this stuff and another angle bracket. He said to remove, in every instance of that, the angle bracket list. So it just says angle bracket weather help dot weather here and here and here and here. By changing those four things, that got rid of the error that we had. You can see it now recognizes query. There's still a problem, and in that it doesn't recognize this word response. All right, so we're down from 2 errors to one error. And ideally, at least, we can fix that one error. Yes. Don't we need an on response? There should be. There's one. Wasn't there one down? There's one down here, right? We're not setting it to anything. Okay, maybe that's it. I understand. No, I understand what you're saying. That's just because it's calling a different method. All right. But I am going to attempt to go on and see if we can finish up what we have to finish up. All right. So for now, we're going to just leave that error there, and I'd like you to please go back to mainActivity.kt. And you're like, where's the rest of it? This is the whole thing. You may or may not remember this. The job of this page right here, this thing, is what's going to, when we press the button, is going to move, and it's going to call the intent that is going to bring up the other screen. All right? Now, you may or may not know this, but when you do this, it is possible for you to pass extra stuff into this. All right? When you call the intent, you can pass other stuff into it if you want to, need to, etc. Well, think about this. You look up on the screen here. This is what we want to pass, correct? Whatever we type in there, that's got to be passed to the other page. For lack of better words, that's our search term, right? So if we put in Wentzville, that's what we're searching for, is Wentzville. We put in New York City, we're searching for New York City, etc. So that's what we want to put in there. So we have to provide that extra information in here for this to be able to do whatever it is that it wants to do, needs to do, whatever it happens to be. All right? So under this, where we've got this var forecast intent, this line right here, we're going to add another line. Okay? Right here. Under this var forecast intent, all right, that you see right there. Okay? We're going to add some more code. How's that? All right. First thing we're going to do here is we're going to put a val, and it's going to say search edit text equals find view by ID. You've done this one before. All right. And that will be an edit text. And this will be r.id dot, and what did we call that? It was edit text city or something like that. There we go. All right. So that's the first thing. Again, what that is going to do is that is going to grab whatever we put into the edit text and put it into a variable called search edit text. We want to take whatever is in that variable and pass it from our first activity or our first screen to our second screen. All right? Okay. Now, before we do the actual start activity here, okay, we can come in and say this. The name of our intent which is forecast intent, you know that. Forecast intent dot put extra. In other words, we want to provide some information before we do the intent. It's not enough just to change the screen. We want to change the screen and pass in the value that we put into the edit text. That's what we're going to do right now with this put extra. All right. Now, when we first do this, okay, we may or may not get an error, but don't worry about it because I'm going to show you we actually should get an error. So if it goes in there and it doesn't get an error, not getting error is an error, believe it or not. But I want to show you quickly how we'd fix that. All right. So we're going to come in here and we're going to put in what? Well, we just said search term, right? All right. That was the first thing that we just put in there. Okay. So we've got search term, and then what do we want? Basically, we have to say what is that doing? What is that search term, for lack of better words? It is our edit text city. All right. And normally, if we were doing this in Java, we would say .get text. But now we can just say .text. Okay? The problem that we're going to have with this, though, is it's returning an edit text text. It's not a string. Did you hear what I said? It's not a string. But the system is going to expect it to be a string. So we have to say .toString. So again, what these lines that we just added right there, what they're doing is they are grabbing the information that we put into the edit text. That's the thing that right now has the hint in it that says like example Wentzville or whatever the heck we put in there. All right. So that's going to grab that text and it's going to be able to now pass it via the intent from one activity to the other, or from one screen to the other, or however you want to refer to it. It doesn't really matter. Conceptually, does what I just mentioned, does it make sense to you? All right. Maybe more than everything else has this period. I don't know. But again, the idea is we want to be able to pass data from one activity to the other activity. Is this the only way of doing it? No. This is a way of doing it. All right? So once we've got that, we're going to go back to our forecast activity.kt file right there. And right up near the top here where we've got set content view, etc., all that good stuff. All right. In fact, even I don't know why I do that before that, but I've got right above that, so I'll say that. That's fine. Right there. Now we have set it up on the one activity. Now we have to set it up on the other activity. Do you understand the file we're in right now? This is the code for the second window, the window that holds our list view. Does that make sense? So we already set up the search term, but that search term is on the first screen or the first activity. Now we have to make it available to the second one. So we're going to come in here and say val, we'll just call it the same thing. Val search term equals intent dot extras dot get string search term. So now what we're doing is we say now we're passing that information. We passed it from the first screen or activity to our second one, but now we want to be able to use it in the second one. Okay, now that we've made that change, it still hasn't fixed this error, but my guess is when we go to weather help, let's go back to weatherhelp.kt, all right? Go back, if you would, please, to the file weatherhelp.kt. All right, we've got this function here that says get forecast. All right, and nobody said this, but if you look right here, what's wrong with this? Oops, sorry. I think that should just be weather. I think if we put that as weather,
Yeah.
all right, so that should be changed, first of all. All right, but now we need more than that. When we get the forecast, the other thing we're going to need is that search term. All right, so we're going to come in and add after the weather, we're going to say, oops, search term, which is a string. And I realize we're jumping back and forth between these two files. When you change one, it's necessitating you changing the other one. I'm trying to do it in an order where at least hopefully somewhat it'll make some sense. All right. With that said, I'm going to go back to my forecastactivity.kt file, one we were just at. Down at the bottom here, see that? See how that's right now is red? Can everybody see this? Because why? Because it says we need to add in there search term. So when we start and we put one in one file, we have to match it with a corresponding thing in the other file. All right. Now let's step away for a second and talk about everything that's in this program that, for lack of better words, is new or confusing or whatever. And you could say, well, everything's confusing. I can appreciate that. All right. But things like being able to create a bunch of classes and just putting in the name of the class, I've never done that before. All right. Is that the only way to do it? That's the recommended way to do it. All right. I'm used to, if I'm going to make a class at a minimum, I've got to make up the class. I've got to put the curly braces in and do all the other good stuff. I'm used to doing that from every object-oriented language I've ever used. This isn't like any object-oriented language I've ever used. All right. Much of the stuff that you're doing in here is very similar to if you were doing iOS programming, so programming for the iPhone, and you were doing it in a language called Swift. All right. There's a coming together here that I'm seeing between Kotlin and Swift. Okay, there's literally only a couple more things that we have to do. All right. And the first one that we have to do, this should make sense. I don't care if you even think you're so confused. Look up on the screen if you would, please. That has to change. Because that's going out to that JSON, myjson.com file. We don't want that, so that's got to change. And since that has to change, so does this. Does that make sense to everyone? Right now, the line that you see in blue here and the line that you see in blue right here, those two lines, right now, those two lines are supposing that we are going out to that one website where we created those 3 weather things yesterday. That's not what we want. Because then no matter what city we put in, if we hit get forecast, it's just going to give up those three things, they're always going to be the same. It's not going to make a whole heck of a lot of sense. All right? So we've got to make some changes. Now, I did this during the break, and hopefully it makes sense, but I want you to see this. So if everybody, just for a second, please, could take a look here. Now, this is, I realize this is kind of hard to see. It's a URL, okay? But if you look right here, it's not that big. Why do I say that? There's a lot of stuff at the end, but when you look at it, let's break this down, okay? First of all, you all should know this. You should all get this. Everything that comes after the question mark is what? Okay, it's a query string, right? Okay, and you see this query string right here that says YQL equals, and that's everything else there is. See all this stuff? Everybody see that? Okay, I'm going to go back to here. Try to. That's this. See that? That's what this is. Where it says YQL query, okay? Not that they're anything like Microsoft or anything else, but my guess is that Y that's in there stands for Yahoo. I could be wrong. It's not SQL, which what I would have been expecting. All right, what's that?
You had your mouse over it, and it said Yahoo.
Okay, all right, Yahoo query language. There you go. It's an SQL-like language. So what I'm getting to is this right here, this, okay? This right here is saying, give me it in Nome, Alaska. Notice if I change this, and I come in here and I type in Wentzville, Missouri, and I say test. That all changes. Now, if you look in here, Wentzville, Missouri, and when I go in here, there's your forecast for the next 10 days. Now, why am I telling you that? We're going to be able to use this query, but think about how we're going to have to change it. We don't want that, correct? We want that to be search term. So that whenever we put a search term in there, hit the button, it runs that query on what we just put in there. Okay? That's what we're going to have to do. Now, that said, when you look back at this, and I want to bring that back up again. Well, the other one. This right here. Again, I'm not saying that that totally makes sense. It may have, it may not have. But the point is, right now, this, what we see, all that stuff right, all that stuff that you saw right here, everything from HTTPS, etc., up till there, that's now our base URL. Does that make sense? Okay. Before, so I'm going to go and copy everything there. https://query.yahooapis.com/v1/public. I'm going to copy that. I've highlighted it. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to go back to my code. All right. And in my code, I'm going to find where this is. And this was ours. Does everybody remember that? That's what we did yesterday. Remember on the board over here, I wrote 3 days. We put in dummy data. That's where this was. So I'm going to replace that with this. All right. So I've got my base URL set. Okay. I've got my base URL set, but I have to go back and I have to set my query. All right. And the problem with that is there's a bunch of stuff in this query. I think we're going to try at least. All right, we're going to try to come in here and grab all of it for now and then make a change to it. All right. We need this Q equals select from, etc. All that good stuff where, okay. The problem is there's a lot of stuff in here we may or may not need. Okay? was good, Jeff. All right. I'm going to take another break right here because before I give you this, I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right stuff. All right. It's 2:38. Let's take 12 minutes, please, and come back at 2:50.